X2. Take advantage of this unprecedented 30% off Super Detox special at InfoWarsLife.com.
Well, the mainstream Western media is working overtime to make you feel guilty if you can't open your heart to all of these unaccompanied illegal aliens that are flooding across the border. Nancy Pelosi says they're all just sparks of the divine. And of course, that same type of rhetoric was being used to gather support for attacking the Assad regime. It's always the children who are used as political pawns. But strangely, the media is not only biased, but outright silent when it comes to the death of Palestinian children. Don't their innocent lives matter? Now, without getting into the historical argument between Israel and Palestine, they've been fighting over that for 1,000 years. I'm not going to solve that here. We just want to look at the blatant hypocrisy of how the mainstream media covers the deaths of some children versus others. Now here, take this bland headline from the New York Times. In the rubble of Gaza Seaside Cafe, hunt for victims who had come for soccer. Now, you know, it's not the greatest headline, but it really doesn't convey the true story. But what's interesting here is that that headline was changed. And you can tell because they forgot to change the URL. The original headline read, "Missile at Beachside Gaza Cafe finds patrons poised for World Cup." Ah, la-di-da, it's almost fun, like a missile just found these people and then it walked into the bar and sat down and ordered a cocktail. No, an Israeli missile fired into a Gaza cafe and killed at least 8 innocent civilians. That's what actually happened there that day. Now, this cafe was one of more than 1,000 locations in Gaza that have been struck by the Israeli military since airstrikes began there early Tuesday morning. But you would not know that if you were just reading and gathering your information from the mainstream media or from this BBC headline that was also changed. Originally, it said, Israel under renewed Hamas attack. And then, of course, if you follow the link, it says now that Israel steps up plans to stop rocket attacks from Gaza. And indeed, they have said they're going to now send ground troops in addition to the missiles that are being launched. Now, Mr. Sandwiches and teddy bears and soccer balls to all the unaccompanied illegal aliens. Reports it like this over at The Blaze. They say, rockets fired from Lebanon strike Israel as attacks by Gaza enter 4th day. Again, just portraying Israel as the victim. You know, I thought we were supposed to open our hearts. Do the Palestinian deaths not matter? And also, ABC's Diane Sawyer was forced to issue an apology to her audience when on her Tuesday night broadcast, she mistakenly identified photos as showing Israelis dealing with the aftermath of an Israeli strike. Now, she apologized on Thursday night for the error, but just like with any retraction, the deed is already done. Most people aren't even paying attention anymore at that point. And did she use the opportunity to call on sympathy now for the Palestinians that were depicted in those photos, like she was originally calling for sympathy for the Israelis that she said were being shown reeling in those photos? No. And there you see this blatant hypocrisy. In all of these instances, Israel is the victim. No one is talking about the, at last count, 108 Palestinian civilians that have been killed in the last 4 days during these airstrikes. 23 of them have been children. Do those children not matter? And that is the question here. And of course, while we're talking about all of this fair and balanced media, I just want to point out that there was a really disturbing Facebook post that was posted by a member of the Israeli parliament. She is a lawmaker there, and she posted an unpublished article that was written by the deceased leader of the Jewish settlement movement, and he was also a close advisor to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, this article asserts that the entire Palestinian people is the enemy, and it advocates genocide against the entire nation, including its elderly women, its cities and its villages, its property and its infrastructure, lest more little snakes be raised there. So now, before someone goes and calls me an anti-Semite, and just like the liberals, they say racist, so it stifles any debate about this. Can you imagine if a member of Congress posted something like this on their Facebook page? It's outrageous. Now, but we're not really hearing anyone talking about this being posted. Now, I'm not making any excuses for the fact that Hamas is firing rockets into Israeli civilian population, but they are firing trinkets. Now, Israel, they have a right to be fearful. They have a right to be angry. They have a right to retaliate. And I'm not saying anything against that, but the media is not being fair. They're not pointing out that Israel is a military superpower. They have armed F-15 fighter jets, Apache helicopters, missiles, drones, nuclear bombs, and the Iron Dome. And they are fighting against what David Cameron describes as a prison camp, firing almost entirely ineffective missiles. And this is the reason why we've seen so many deaths in Gaza versus 0 in Israel in the last 4 days. Now, this is kind of a call to all the people of the earth. We all need to be wary and watchful of our governments and how they are using us as pawns against each other to further their political means and causing this violence in our names. In America, we give $3 billion in aid annually to Israel, so this is our business. Now, all people of Earth need to watch how their governments are using them as props for war and causing all this violence in their name. And really, Israel, please be careful of losing the moral high ground. Here we have an article up at INFOWARS.com. It shows that it is not just Hamas, the terrorist group, who celebrates the loss of innocent lives. Here are people in Israel who are gathered around to watch the airstrikes as if it's like a fireworks show or something. Now, this is callous behavior, witnessing from afar the murder of children and other innocents. It's a prime example of the efficacy of brainwashing by the state. It's just like when Americans gathered around their TV sets to watch the shock and awe campaign that was unleashed on Baghdad in 2003. But here, what we are seeing is the state-run media choosing sides for us. We have to be careful of that. That's exactly what they are wanting to do, is gear us up for war. They're using us. Here, back to this article, Nazi Reich Marshal Hermann Göring said, "It is relatively easy to brainwash the masses." He said the common people, they don't want war, but they can always be brought to the bidding of the leaders. That is easy. All you have to do is tell them that they are being attacked and denounce the pacifists for lack of patriotism and exposing the country to danger. It works the same way in any country. And that is exactly what we are seeing right now. Now, I'm not sitting here telling you who's right and who's wrong, but what I am saying is just be careful of the media telling you what side to choose. We have to stand up to tyranny in all forms. Otherwise, this is what we get. We get the blood of dead children on our hands and an audience that's tuned in 24/7 to witness the deterioration of the human race.
The globalist social engineers are not just targeting us with propaganda. They are manipulating our genetics. We are being targeted at every level by estrogen mimickers that lower our testosterone and other hormones and natural compounds that the body needs. After consulting top doctors, nutritionists, pharmacists, and others, we have developed what I believe is the ultimate non-GMO organic super male vitality formula, sourced from powerful organic herbs and then concentrated for maximum potency. Super Male Vitality was developed to activate your body's own natural processes instead of using synthetic chemicals. Super Male Vitality by INFOWARS Life is so powerful that I only take half the recommended dose. For a limited time, we are offering 15% off Super Male Vitality at InfoWarsLife.com to introduce you to this powerful supplement. Visit InfoWarsLife.com today to secure your Super Male Vitality. InfoWarsLife.com.
Hi, I'm Dr. Edward Group. Today I'd like to talk about the war on women. You've experienced and heard about the benefits of Super Male Vitality. Now, the new formula has arrived. Introducing the new Super Female Vitality. I have specifically designed this formula to help the body naturally regulate itself without the use of artificial hormones. Key ingredients chosen from the highest quality sources. Each of these ingredients works synergistically with the female body in order to maximize overall vitality. You've heard the reviews and the feedback on how the original Super Male Vitality has revitalized relationships. Now, both the man and the woman can have the revitalization in their own bodies with Super Male Vitality and Super Female Vitality. Secure your Super Female Vitality today from our limited stock at INFOWARSLife.com.
The planet Earth, our home, is part of the Milky Way galaxy, containing hundreds of millions of stars and solar systems. And part of our universe is radiation. A lot of it is good for us. The radiation that comes from the sun heats up the plants and allows them to carry out photosynthesis. But too much radiation and the wrong types of radiation accelerate the aging of our cells and our DNA and can prematurely kill us. If you get enough radiation, you can die in a matter of minutes from it. And since the discovery of the atom in around 1900 by Max Planck and other German physicists, we've been able to harness the power of the atom, and thousands of nuclear power plants have been built around the world. A little more than 450 are supplying power today. There are several thousand institutional reactors around the world, like right here at the University of Texas in Austin. And many of these are built on fault lines, and not just fault lines, they're built on tsunami areas like Fukushima in Japan. More than 90% of reactors are currently leaking, and the nuclear industry, a group that I was supportive of a few decades ago, now just doesn't seem to care, and have even turned off the alarms in places like Southern California when the reactors are leaking. And so now we've seen a laissez-faire attitude where people are not concerned about the radiation leaking out of these plants, or when we see tsunamis and earthquakes hit Fukushima and the huge plume that within a matter of weeks traveled across the Pacific Ocean with the trade winds slamming in to the west coast of the United States. And there's been some new developments today that I'd like to share with the viewers out there so that hopefully people can be aware of what's happening and try to take some precautions to protect ourselves and our families. And now another huge typhoon named Neoguri is set to slam into the coastline and basically score a direct hit on Fukushima that is currently melting down into the soil. They're dumping seawater on it for 3+ years, and the radiation is contaminating the ocean and air at levels higher than the original explosion. Remember, 5 of the 6 reactors were seriously damaged and partially melted down, dwarfing what we saw with the 1986 Chernobyl disaster that the UN estimates has killed more than 1 million people since. Here's the headline: Fukushima nuclear plant in Tokyo on alert as typhoon nears. Another headline out of the London Telegraph: Typhoon Neoguri heads for Fukushima nuclear plant. Couldn't have been built in a worse place. And that makes us ask the question, again, what's wrong with the psychology of the elite that they would build hundreds of these plants on fault lines and other dangerous areas and then not even care as they continue to melt down? It's as if they have a death wish, not just for us individually or our children, but for themselves and this planet. Because in the last 3+ years since Fukushima, we have immediately seen increased radiation in the tuna. We are now seeing massive die-offs all over the Pacific as krill at the bottom of the food chain that help continue the entire food chain in the ocean and on this planet are dying off. And researchers believe it's tied to the radiation, with it bioaccumulating in them. And again, the radiation levels are off the chart in tuna off of the West Coast, Oregon, California. This has been going on for 3+ years and has been covered up by the Western press. It's confirmed by scientists worldwide that this is happening. But by the time it hits PBS, they say it's a mysterious epidemic devastating the starfish and other life in the Pacific Ocean. Ladies and gentlemen, we're seeing thyroid disorders expand off the chart here in the United States. We're seeing birth defects increase.